The NBA, unfortunately, is dying. I know I'm not exactly breaking news with this. The downward trajectory of the league's viewership over the past several seasons has already been well established. The general public is clearly growing a bit tired of the monotony of modern NBA basketball, and there are several reasons for this. This is a very complex issue, but for this video specifically, I want to focus on just one of them. The one that is probably the most talked about and easiest for the NBA to fix: the three-point shot. If you have been even a cursory fan of the NBA over the past decade or so, you probably know one of the most debated topics in basketball is the true efficacy of the three-point shot. In this debate, there are generally two sides. There's the pro three-point side that argues something along the lines of, simple math, 3 is more than 2, every team's shot profile should be entirely composed of the two most efficient shots in basketball, a shot at the rim or a three-point shot. Then there's the anti-three-point side. This side is your old heads, gray in the beard, gravelly voice, back in my day types. Their argument generally boils down to offense should be geared towards getting the open shot, not just getting up threes. The arbiters of these two diametrically opposed positions have been locking horns for a while now. And unfortunately for the NBA, one of those positions has clearly blown the other out of the water. Chucking threes is the best way to win games nowadays. It's simply the truth. I'm very sorry. You can dislike the video if you want. Drop a hate comment down below. But I truly believe when you crunch the numbers, the best way to win basketball games is to be good at shooting threes. The evidence for this assertion is frankly overwhelming. You can look at something like the correlation between the league's rise in offensive efficiency and the number of threes taken per game. You can look at something like the fact that you score significantly more points per shot shooting threes than shooting any other jump shot. You can look at the fact that every NBA champion since 2012 except for one was at least top 10 in the league in three-point percentage, and most were top 5. You can look at the fact that the only shot attempt that consistently shows a positive correlation to winning is the three-point shot. Every number or metric that has anything to do with shooting threes and winning basketball games will all say the same thing. The three-point line is the key to success. To the point where if you took a machine learning program whose only goal was to find the most effective way to win basketball games, it would probably determine that the best way to do so is to take even more three-point shots than we are taking right now. And I hate that. Don't get me wrong, to my core, I hate that. I'm on the public side with this. You see, I went through that whole 2-minute diatribe about how closely winning basketball games and shooting the three-point shot are linked, because a lot of anti-three-point people seem to be of the opinion that three-pointers of this magnitude is bad basketball in terms of winning. But by trying to make that point, which I hope I've proven to you now is about as wrong as an opinion can be, these anti-three-point people are missing the much bigger picture. This brand of basketball is substantially more boring to watch than the brands of years past. No one wants to watch every player on every team chuck up threes for 48 minutes. To be even more accurate, no one wants to watch every player on every team play the same way. This isn't just a three-point issue in my opinion. I think the NBA would be in the same dilemma if everyone was doing post-ups or mid-range jump shots, even dunks. In this universe we are currently in, the culprit just happens to be three-pointers. The game has just become way too homogenous. It has literally gone from chess to checkers. Every player has the same strengths and same weaknesses. Every piece moves the same. Everyone has the same goal. How do we get up threes in the most efficient manner? Victor Wembanyama is the perfect example of this. No, he is not the one that ruined the NBA. He's not even the worst example of shooting too many threes in today's league. But he is the best example of the game devolving into checkers. Victor is the ideal basketball specimen. The only hole in his game, offensively or defensively, is he could down a few more quarter pounders. Other than that, the world is his oyster. He's a blank canvas. He can literally do or be whatever he wants to be. And despite this, even he opts to go down the Steph Curry path like 90% of the league. The brother is currently averaging the 8th most three-pointers attempted per game in the NBA. Not Steph, Victor, 8th, 9.4. That is putting 7'4" Victor Wembanyama in the same offensive play style lane as not just the aforementioned Stephen Curry, Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Jordan Poole, Damian Lillard, Rayford, Trae Young. I'm sorry, but if your sport has 7'4" Victor Wembanyama playing in a similar way to 6'0" Trae Young, then substantial changes must be made. And now we arrive at the desk of one Adam Silver. Because teams and players are not going to change the way they play if it is the most efficient way to play the game. And getting up threes is the most efficient way to play. Even if you don't believe that after all the stats I gave you, you cannot deny that this is clearly the belief of NBA coaches, players, and front offices. And they are the ones that control what style of play we watch. It is not those guys' jobs to make the most entertaining basketball for us. It's their job to win games. It is Adam Silver and the NBA Competition Committee's jobs to ensure that the best way for NBA teams to win games is the most entertaining for us to watch. And I am very happy that Adam is coming to terms with this and understanding that some serious judgments need to be made to the game in order for us to redirect this downward spiral the NBA seems to be on. For the final part of this video, I want to discuss some of the potential three-point rule adjustments I've seen tossed around. I am not claiming any of these as my own ideas. I'm sure a lot of you have heard at least one of these propositions from one source or another already. I just want to discuss my favorite potential fixes and how I think they can affect the game. So let's start off with a rule that I think would potentially fix everything. I just think it's a bit too radical for the NBA to get behind. That rule is 2 points is now 3 points, and 3 points is now 4 points. For the duration of this discussion, I'm going to refer to 2-pointers as inside shots and 3-pointers as outside shots, just so it's a bit easier to follow the numbers. All right, stay with me now. One of the reasons analytic nerds like the outside shot so much is because it's worth 3 points and all other shots are worth 2. Kind of self-explanatory, I know, but let's dive into the math because it explains their thinking a little more clearly. So the NBA as a whole is currently shooting about 36% on outside the arc shots. This means that if a player takes 10 shots and they are all outside of the arc, you can expect them to score about 11 points. If that same player took 10 shots and they were all inside the arc though, he would have to shoot a significantly higher percentage to reach that same 11 points because 3 is 50% more than 2. The player in question would have to shoot about 54% from inside the arc, which may be easy for a big, but for pretty much every decent perimeter player, it would be a lot easier for them to shoot 36% from outside the arc, which is why players are taking so many outside shots. Mathematically, it's just easier to score. If we adjusted the league's scoring though, so now outside shots are worth 4 points instead of 3, and inside shots are now worth 3 points instead of 2, well now the numbers change drastically because an outside shot is now worth only 33% more than an inside shot, not 50%. That seems like a negligible difference, but if we go back to that same 10-shot scenario where a player shoots all 10 shots from outside the arc at a league average percentage of 36%, that same player would only have to shoot 48% from inside the arc to match that outside scoring total. And there are a lot more players shooting 48% on inside the arc shots than 36% on outside the arc shots. By increasing an inside shot from 2 points to 3 points and an outside shot from 3 points to 4 points, you devalue outside shots by making inside shots more valuable mathematically. And the beauty of this is that wouldn't completely swing the game in the other direction where no threes are being taken now, because there are still plenty of people that shoot at a high enough percentage that would make outside shots valuable for them. The only difference would be outside shots would not be valuable for everybody. Shooters would still shoot, but slashers wouldn't shoot, they'd slash. Post-up players wouldn't shoot, they'd post up. And mid-range operators could once again operate without the fear of their analytics department getting them fired. If anything, analytics departments may start telling players to take more mid-range shots. To me, this is the most sophisticated solution to our problem because it forces teams to shoot less outside shots by literally changing the math of the game. The only issue is if the NBA did change this, the record books would start looking really funky. Comparing players from different eras would be even more difficult than it is right now. And on top of that, teams would now be scoring 160 to 170 instead of 110 to 120. This change would take a lot of getting used to. Still, to me though, this is the most elegant proposition, and I would be very intrigued if Adam decided this is the road he wanted to go down. The next potential solution I've seen that I liked was lengthening the three-point line by 3 feet, so now there is no corner 3. I like this rule change a lot for multiple reasons. The first is it just makes threes more difficult. Shooting from 27 feet is harder than shooting from 24. Doing this again forces players who aren't the best shooters to find something else they are good at. On top of making three-pointers more difficult, maybe the even more impactful effect of this potential rule change is that it eliminates the most efficient shot in basketball. Corner threes would be extinct, a thing of the past. The corner 3 used to be the perfect place to stick your defensive player who is a mediocre at best shooter. Just stick him in the corner and he'll probably shoot around league average due to the corner 3 being the shortest three-pointer you can take. Hell, PJ Tucker had a great career almost solely due to that shot. You remove the corner 3 from the game, and again, these middling three-point shooters are going to have to find something else they are good at. This elimination also has the added benefit of making pick and roll defense a lot easier. I do really like this rule, and I think it would definitely work in the short and medium term. In the long term though, I do think we'd eventually have the same issue we have right now. Players adapt to the rules and get more skilled over time, so I think it is very likely in 2040 players are chucking up 27-footers like they are chucking up 24-footers right now. Kicking the can down the road is okay in this scenario, but I would ideally like a solution that's going to permanently put this issue to rest. This next proposition almost certainly will never happen because it is way too gimmicky, but I love the idea of it so much I have to discuss it. Having every NBA team be able to draw their own three-point line. This idea is heavily inspired by baseball. If you don't know, baseball stadiums all have their own dimensions that makes each of them a little different to play in. For instance, the Colorado Rockies have a pretty small field, which makes it really easy to hit home runs there, especially when you combine that with the high altitude of the stadium. My Kansas City Royals have a much larger field, so teams get less homers there, but tend to get more hits because our defenders have more space to cover. And then there is Fenway Park with the famous green monster. You gotta absolutely murder a ball if you want a homer there. The three-point line by stadium proposition would be the NBA analog of this, as it would allow each team to draw their home court's three-point arc however far they want. This would immediately fix the issue of homogeneity in the NBA, because if NBA teams fully embraced this rule, it would cause every game to look substantially different. For instance, let's take a team like the Milwaukee Bucks or the Golden State Warriors, the two teams with the two best shooters in the history of the NBA. The only people in league history where a half-court heave is a viable shot for them. If both of these teams embrace this rule to its full effect, they could draw their three-point line at 30 feet so that Dame and Steph are the only two players on the court that can consistently be effective from beyond the arc. Then there are teams like the Rockets, the Orlando Magic, and the San Antonio Spurs. These three teams are three of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league, but also three of the best teams in the league at stopping twos by field goal percentage. So why wouldn't they just play into their strengths while also fully eliminating their weaknesses? You come into our barn, you transport it back to the 1970s. Three-pointers do not exist. Good luck, brother. Maybe a team like the Phoenix Suns, the most efficient long two shooting team in the league, maybe they want to move the three-point line in a couple feet, so now these long twos are actually threes. Then there would be teams like the Celtics, Cavs, or Thunder, teams that are pretty good all around right now that would inevitably say, no, thank you, we like the rules just the way they are. To me, this would wholly fix the monotony issue forever, just because there are too many variables for analytics departments to account for now. There is no way we would again find ourselves where we are at right now, where every team has found the same answer to the how do we win games question. Each team would have to find their own best way to win basketball games. And even if a team did solve this question, even if they found the perfect way to play the game in this format, they still would have to be versatile enough to go to someone else's home court, play a completely different brand of basketball, and still get a win. To me, this is another really good solution, except for the fact that, again, it's a bit too gimmicky. Baseball has been doing this since its inception, so the unique dimensions of each baseball stadium is kind of a part of the game's identity. The NBA adding a rule change this drastic in 2025, in my opinion, would change the game too much. On top of that, voting for awards would be exceptionally more difficult than it already is. For instance, if the Orlando Magic completely removed the three-point line as I suggested, but the Thunder kept theirs as is, and they both ended up winning the same amount of games, if we were voting for MVP, how would we compare Palo stats to SGA's? There would need to be some conversion rate for every stadium, which is something I think NBA voters would be bound to mess up. So a very cool rule, but just a bit too gimmicky for my taste. And finally, we have the rule, which is the rule I think the NBA should and will implement, eliminating the number of threes an NBA team gets per game. Everyone is shooting too many threes? Okay, add in a rule that says each game a team can only score X amount of threes, and past that, any beyond the arc shot is only worth 2. The NBA's highest regular season viewership numbers were in 2011-12. In this season, the most threes made per game by a landslide were the Orlando Magic at a paltry 10.2. So let's set the limit at 10. Each team only gets 10 threes per game. Any beyond the arc shot they shoot after their 10th make still counts, but now it's only worth 2 instead of 3. This does not fundamentally change basketball. If anything, it forces it to more closely resemble the game at a time where more people enjoyed it. And on the court, it forces teams to shoot more twos, which will force them to lean into their strengths to win, thus making the game more diverse once again. To me, this is the perfect solution, and I would be shocked if Adam Silver and the NBA Competition Committee did not feel the same way. With that, thank you for watching the video all the way through. We greatly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this content, why don't you go ahead and like and subscribe? Comment down below what you think about any of the ideas I proposed in this video. I would love to hear your thoughts. Share the video with a friend, and as always, stay sweaty, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.